We acknowledge that our work takes place on unceded and occupied territories of the 575 plus Native nations. We are inviting you to take a moment to reflect on whose land you are living and working on. And if you don't know, to research and reflect. There is only one water, one earth, one sun, one sky, one moon, and we are here to work together peacefully. I'm going to introduce you in my language. Donashi Oyate Wiyankapoin, people who see this woman, Konsei. I'm your host today, and my name is Joanelle Romero. And I'd like to welcome Alex Rose Holiday, who will sing an honor song in support of women supporting women. Alex is a traditional singer, a model, and artist from the Dene Nation.
So this song that I'm going to sing is called Children of Our Homeland. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. That was really beautiful. Welcome to the 13th Native Women in Film and Television and All Media Film Festival, streaming 40 films directed by women and 5 conversation series. Women Decolonizing the Entertainment Industry, a virtual experience streaming on Red Nation Television Network during this time leading up to the Academy Awards. Who tells the story matters, creating systemic change through arts and media. Native women in film and television and all media. Film Festival, the first and largest representation of Native and Indigenous women filmmakers. Native Women in Film and Television is a program, serves under its fiscal partner, Red Nation Celebration Institute, the creative enterprise by Natives delivering to all people the stories that shape our world. Who tells the story matters. We have 4 days till the Academy Awards. And as an Academy member and the first Native filmmaker shortlisted for an Academy Award, one of my goals is to make sure that our Native Indigenous women filmmakers submit their work to the Academy for consideration. Today's conversation series is titled The Producers Group. We will discuss feature film and documentaries with our filmmakers. Our filmmakers today are award-winning filmmakers, and my guests today are Loretta Todd, who is a producer and director and writer. I'm just going to put that in there. And she directed last year's film, Monkey Beach, which also won at our Red Nation International Film Festival and has just been winning all accolades, many awards, and streaming on many platforms. Loretta Todd has directed over 100 projects, from documentaries to features to animations. Welcome, Loretta. You're on mute.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. Glad to be
Yes.
here.
Yeah, and I could go on and on with Loretta's resume, but we'll get into that as the conversation moves forward. Our other guest today is Katsitsionni Fox, and she's a producer and director, and she's been making films since 2003 in the Mohawk Territory, where she resides. And her films have also, 2 of her films have won at our Red Nation International Film Festival and have screened at Native Women in Film and Television. She is an award-winning filmmaker, and her latest film is Without a Whisper, is an untold story of how Native American women helped to inspire the struggle of American women's suffrage movement in the United States. Mm-hmm. Welcome, Katsitsionni.
Thanks for having me, Joanelle.
Yeah. So let's, this is our 5th conversation of the series. And the other 4 conversations, they've been really powerful. So everyone in our audience that's listening, if you can tune in to nativewomeninfilm.com, and you can view and experience all this talent that we have in Indian country, all these Native women, Indigenous women that have been inspiring and making movies for many years, and some new, but mostly all of us have been doing this for a hot minute. So Loretta, I'd like for you to share with us, your experience in like, I know we don't have a lot of time, but like your experience on how you came up with Monkey Beach. I know it's from a book, but the beginning processes to the end, and the challenges you faced as a Native woman.
Well,
yeah.
I think the challenge began really before, as a filmmaker, because how do you keep control of your work? How do you be able to not just hand it over to some other producers and let them do what they want to do with it?
Yeah.
So that challenge began earlier because I worked with the National Film Board in Canada and produced, documentaries with them, and there was always that push and pull. I had some great producers I worked with who really respected my creative vision, and then other times it wasn't always so easy. So it was obviously, the producer is obviously a really critical thing, particularly in Canada because of the way things work here. So you have to you know, a lot of Indigenous filmmakers have had to kind of basically give over their projects to, you know, non-Indigenous producers to be able to get their work done. Or, you know, so for me, it was partly like, okay, how do I be able to, you know, guide this, you know, ensure my vision is there, and how do I get to that space? So with Monkey Beach, and, you know, keep in mind also that after I'd done as many documentaries and done all these other work, I went looking for work. So, oh, I'm going to find some work. And, wasn't able to find any work, I guess, you know, a little ahead of my time. And so instead I started producing children's series. I produced this children's series about teaching little kids introduction to Cree, a Nahiawewan. You know, and the series was called Nahiawetan. And so, you know, I produced that, and I'm producing Coyote Science, which is Indigenous children's series about science. So those things are, you know, I knew that that's how I was going to create work. Plus I was going to create work for other Indigenous crews and cast and creative. So, you know, I've been hiring Indigenous crew and cast and creative since my very beginning of my career, but certainly with, you know, the children's series where I had like, you know, I've had between 75 and 100% Indigenous crew. So those kinds of things were really critical for me to take hold of and to be able to manage and be able to kind of make sure I could live up to those ideals that were important to us as a people, that, you know, we hire our own people, we hire our own crew, we redistribute wealth. So with Monkey Beach, I decided that I'm going to, you know, I've been trying to get feature films. It wasn't the first time. I was invited to direct feature films by other Indigenous writers back in the day, and we tried to get them produced. We went to all the various funding agencies, and I guess we were ahead of the time because they would kind of like, you know, humor us, maybe give us some development money, but it never really was able to go into production. There was at least 4 or 5. You know, even one of my feature scripts that I wrote, which I took to another producer and said, hey, maybe you could produce this with me. He said, oh, I'm on page 10, Loretta, and I've already spent, you know, $5 million. So, you know, I don't think you're ever going to be able to make this film because no one's ever going to give you that money to be able to make your film. So, you know, so it wasn't like the first time, but this time I thought, I'm going to make sure I can do this. So I went to, first of all, I optioned the book, and that was a bit of a struggle because I'd never done that before, but I was able to figure it out and, you know, look at different options, you know, contact first Eden and then contact, you know, her agent and, you know, start the negotiations. I eventually brought a lawyer into the process because it was important that we have it all legally, you know, properly done for, you know, the colonial law systems. You know, in the old days, it might have been a feast and we would have, you know, witnessed, everyone would have come and it would have been done that way. But here it was, we had to go through the legal process, which was fine. So I optioned it, and I was very grateful. At one point, Eden Robinson said that she would only option it to me anyways, which was great. And in fact, in her book, which, you know, I'd never met her, she actually acknowledged me in her book, which was fun. It's funny, like, because I said I'd never met her, but somehow I had inspired her at some point. So that was done. And, you know, that certainly is a process. You have to make sure, you know, you have to be incorporated as a company, of course, and there's, you know, all these other kind of factors that come into play. And then I decided that I wanted to make it as much of an Indigenous project as I could. So I approached, you know, a friend that I had worked with before, Jeff Bear, who's a Maliseet filmmaker, producer, in his own right, a journalist. And so we agreed to, you know, create a company together. And we went off to try to create it, to actually make Monkey Beach happen. And we were looking big budget. We were looking full native crew. We were looking locations, you know, shooting in the village. So we were looking at, you know, a decent budget, not you know, not a ridiculously, you know, budget beyond our means or anything like that. Just a, you know, reasonable budget. And every time we would come up against people saying, oh no, you're never going to get that money for your first feature. You know, no one's ever going to give you that money. And yet it's like, well, we want it to be proper. We want this book to be, you know, properly respected and the story properly done. So we kind of banged around for a while, knocking at, you know, Telefilm, which is the film agency here in Canada. They gave us development, and we, you know, we tried, and you know, it just never seemed to be like, the right script for them. Oh, you're not quite there. You're not quite there. You're getting there, but not quite there. So eventually Jeff and I parted amicably. You know, he had a different creative vision and I had a different creative vision. And so we parted ways, and then I started producing it on my own. Which again, I'm still up against the same issues. I still want to do it for a decent budget. I still want to do it in the village. I still want to, you know, as much of a full Indigenous crew as I can. So sometimes that was my story. That's what I would tell people. And, you know, and I'm the director, and I'm also writing. And actually, eventually I had to bring other writers on because obviously Telefilm didn't think my versions were getting quite there. So I brought other writers on to help, who volunteered because I didn't have any money at that point. And so we just kept moving forward. I went everywhere. I went to private corporations. I heard that billionaires were giving money away in the States because they wanted to die with no money. So I tried to track down some of these billionaires. I even sent nice little packages to their offices, and thinking, hey, maybe they're going to invest in this film, and with little gifts and everything else. I went in Kitimat, the village where we filmed in the Haisla Nation. There's a aluminum smelter that's been there for a long time, and in some ways they've been good citizens, in other ways they haven't, because of course they polluted the water. And so in any case, I went to them, and they will sometimes give money back to the community. So, and it's Alcan, it's a huge company now, now Rio Tinto. And I went to them and submitted to them to possibly invest in the film, or at least contribute back as as part of their corporate duty back to the to the people on the land in which they're making billions off. And they said no. I think at one point when I listed all the places I'd gone, it was probably like 2 pages full, single line, where I went to try to find the money. APTN, the Aboriginal People's Television Network here in Canada, created an initiative to fund Indigenous novels into films. So they had a call out, a request for proposal. You had to submit, and I did, and I was able to get my first license from them, which is great. And so that really helped, and it also kind of psychologically helped, because it's after those many years of kind of getting a lot of no's or ghosting, or nothing happening, or you're unrealistic, not going to happen. It was nice to kind of get that endorsement. So with that, again, I started knocking on doors, and still kind of going through the process as enthusiastically as I can, going to pitches, going to they had like this thing called the National Screen Institute here that did a first feature program. Went to New York, pitched at the Independent Film Week. So meeting a lot of people, but still people saying your budget's too big, your budget's too big.
What was your budget?
Well, it varied. In the end, my budget was, it varied. At that point, I was only asking between 5 and 7 million, which I don't think is ridiculous, amount of budget, But people would say to me, well, we only do 10 million, or they would say, we only do 2 million. And so it was like, and we're not going to give a 10 million to you because, you're a first feature director. We don't know who you are. The 2 million people would go, well, if you can bring it down, maybe don't film in Kitimat, or scale it back, because it it has effects, it has so on. So I said, well, I can't do that.
What did you end up with the budget? What was
well, I don't want to say, but it was less than that. It was certainly less than that. But it was somewhere around half of the sort of somewhere in half of my original hope. But then somewhere along the line, Telefilm, after years and years and years of lobbying, because at the same time I'm making films, I'm producing, I'm directing, I've created the IM4 Lab, which is an Indigenous XR Lab. All this stuff is going on. And of course, over time, me and many, many Indigenous filmmakers in Canada have been lobbying the government for change. So finally, Telefilm created something called the Indigenous Feature Film Fund. So that's what I applied to. And that's where I was able to get the funding. And the problem in Canada is that a lot of your funding comes from tax credits. So you have to spend your labor and then get reimbursed.
Yeah.
Which means you have to get a sizable loan from the bank. And this is a systemic barrier because
Right.
I can get a loan from the bank for my children's series projects because my budget's not that big, and the bank knows me, so they will give me a modest amount of an interim financing loan, which is guaranteed against this tax credit. So it's not like they're taking a chance. It's if I finish the film, tax credits come in. But I couldn't get the amount that I would need to do this film. The bank wasn't going to give me that amount of interim financing. So I had to go to a non-Indigenous producer and form a 49-51% relationship for the film. And I'm not going to say it was the best experience, but
you got it
at
made.
the same time, I got it made. And
You got it made.
I'm grateful for that.
Woo!
And that's the critical thing.
Yeah. So as women producers, and then on top of that, Indigenous women, it's definitely a process, right? And I know that here in LA, we don't have any of those kind of initiatives that Canada has, really, where they really support the arts. It's really a challenge here, and it's seriously lacking in comparison to Canada and the support up there.
I totally agree. Canada has a better system and it's great, but it's still not there, because when you think about it, Canada subsidized non-Indigenous producers for years, white producers for decades. They're very wealthy now because of that subsidized system, and we're coming in and we're not getting able to there's no level playing field.
Right.
So it is good, and I'm completely grateful. And I know I could do it without the system, but at the same time, it has its great inequities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to get any film made is truly a miracle. It really, really is. And how long was the time period from when you first had your initial aha, I'm going to do this movie, to the finished product? How many years?
15.
15. Yeah. Okay. Because I'm on my 9th year with mine. And I'm going to get it made this year. I just have to.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
so
partner with me in Canada. We'll see what we can do.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
No, okay, we'll talk after.
We'll
okay.
talk after.
Woo. Because this one is it's really something. Okay. And I've been very close 3 times, but that's not the conversation today. So, Junie, your films are so they just have this very precious, gentle point of view. And it's probably because, that's the kind of person you are. You're really calm, right? Mm-hmm. And so it comes off. You could see that with the direction and the production and of your film. Totally unlike me. That's for sure. But I wanted to know, like, without a whisper, because of the topic of the documentary, how long did it take you to do it, and what was your process and challenges, and your budget?
I don't think people are real comfortable shouting out their budgets, really. But
oh, really? I'll share mine after you share.
Okay. So I started this movie right after I finished my last movie. So Under the Husk came out in 2016, and that's when I, got on the ground and started working on this one. And it came out in 2020, so it took me 4 years to make the film, and it's a half-hour documentary. Didn't go through nearly, the amount of challenges that Loretta went through, because she's doing a feature film and mine's a documentary. I was able to get pre-production funding through Vision Maker Media, so I had time to develop the film. And then I wrote again for production funding, and I got funding to produce the film and to finish it. So I was really fortunate to have the support of Vision Maker Media for both of my films. And they're also supporting me in this film that I'm working on right now, which is a film on Indigenous women seed savers called Gahna'ue, which means original seed. So I'm on my third film with Vision Maker Media. I knew early on who I wanted to be in the film, so I have Louise Wagalagatste who's a Bear Clan mother from my community and also was in my last film, and Sally Roche Wagner, who is a really well-known academic, knows a lot about women's history and has taught women's studies for over 40 years. So the two of them were already friends, so it was natural to, to bring them together and to have the story come through them. And I think the reason why, like, you pick out that you think I'm kind of gentle, it's because I know the people.
Yeah.
The people that are in my films are people that I know personally. So, I'm not somebody from the outside coming in having to get to know people. I already know them. So they put down their guard when they're around me, I think, because I'm already close with them. And I kind of let the story, come through me. I'm not forcing a story. So I kind of have in mind when I start, like, I kind of think about what kind of messages that I'd like to give the audience, first our own Indigenous audience, and then also what I'd like the outside world to kind of know about us. And I come about it in that way. And then things come naturally. There's one thing about thinking about what you think something's going to turn out like in a documentary, but it always depends on, what's given to you, what's shown to you, and what wants to shine through, I guess.
Absolutely.
So that was kind of my process. And it's a struggle always making a film. You're still looking for more funds all the time, or you're looking for the right crew to go with you, finding people, especially in communities where there's not a lot of people that are in the film industry, like in Akwesasne, there's not a lot of people making films, so it's a challenge sometimes. Even just finding people to talk to, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
talk to in the process that really kind of get where you're coming from. So it's good to have friends and to have a network and to be able to pick the brains of other people that are in the industry. So it's good, these kind of things that we're doing, having these talks and networking with other people and learning about how other people are doing with their projects, and and just moving forward. It's so important, the work that we're doing, and it can be a struggle, but I feel like we're fortunate to be in the time that we're in, that we're able to be able to do this kind of work. Our grandmothers were all kind of in survival mode, but us, we can do that. We can share their stories.
Absolutely. Well, this is like, I'll share quickly my experience when I made American Holocaust. When it's all over, I'll still be Indian. I was ahead of my time. This was in the early 90s, right? Dinosaur here. But so I wrote, the treatment for it, right? For a 90-minute documentary feature. And back then, the only documentary feature was Muhammad Ali. And, documentaries weren't like in and really like they are today. And and no one was really doing documentary features. So no one was really investing in that point of view. But I really had belief in this. And I went to everyone I knew in Hollywood, everyone, all my friends, all my mom's friends, I mean, everyone I could think of for the funding. They said, this is a huge subject matter. How are you going to tackle it all in 90 minutes? So they didn't have confidence that I can do that. And so I didn't raise the money for a 90-minute. However, when PBS or ITVS would hire me, I would have good cameras and lighting. So, so on the weekends, I would get all these interviews, right? You got to do what you got to do, right? And so I would get all these interviews. So I was, we're here in LA. It's the day before school. I'm taking my kids to the beach. They're playing in the water. And I just had this moment, this aha moment, and said, I have all these interviews. Like I have the last footage of Mildred Clayhorn, the last footage of Grandpa Wallace Black Elk, right? And I said, okay, so I have all this footage. I'm just going to go out and beg an editor to donate their editing and let's do this. So I said, kids, get in the car. We gotta go. So we got back home. So I called everybody, and the bottom line is that we really didn't have any money, and my budget was really super low. And I got my friend Ed Asner to narrate it. The film is about the American Indian and the Jewish Holocaust and the similarities and our enrollment issue. Because as a grandma, as a mother, I've always been very concerned about that, because that was a plot to wipe us all out. So I wanted to capture that. And this was early on, before anyone was really talking about this enrollment issue like we are today, thank God. You know, this was what, 2000. Anyway, so I didn't want to enter it in any of the film festivals. I wanted to go straight to the top. So I entered into the Oscars. So then, back then, 500 years ago, you had to have it on 35mm film. That was the challenge. So I had to figure out, how am I going to get money to bump it up to 35? You know, it was just one challenge after the other. And it was very exciting. It was very, you know, a learning process for me. And it ended up being a doc short, right? Because that's all I could afford. And I entered it into the Oscars, and 22 shorts were entered that year. 9 were shortlisted. I was part of the 9, and then 5 were nominated. And I didn't think being shortlisted meant anything. Like the nominations, yes, I get that. But no, I got calls from Variety and, you know, all these, you know, agents say, no, that means something. Use that. That's publicity. Yes, being shortlisted means something. So, that was my process with American Holocaust. Today, being a producer, you know, making films and having my own television network, predating Netflix, or before anyone was online streaming. The only one that was online streaming was YouTube, and they just had silly stuff on there. You know, it was not real content. And so today, it's still a challenge, right? I mean, I'm optimistic because we have like Reservation Dogs and Rutherford Falls and on cable, and there's some movement, but still, as women producers, Native, Indigenous women producers, where are we? Where are we on the executive boards? Where are we, you know, in the studio system, out of studio? You know, this is what I'd like to investigate and move forward into the future to make sure that we have a seat at those tables, you know, and also our vision of filmmaking as Indigenous women, right? Our point of view, our stories are untapped within this whole Hollywood system, right? Because Hollywood keeps regurgitating the same story over and over again. It's a different facelift over and over again. But our stories are untapped because we think differently. Our languages are different. We don't have words for war and hate and all those things. So it's a whole different process, a whole different point of view. So that I'm enthusiastic about, right? Being a producer and director and writer, getting them made, you know, any film made is a miracle. So yeah, however we could get it done, right? So yeah, that's been my experience.
That's
So
an amazing story. Wow. I couldn't, it's just, you know, congratulations that you did all that. I mean, I think that's the way, I think all of us, I mean, I remember the first film I made was, I had the Allied Indian Métis Society, which is a halfway house for men coming out of prison. They asked if I could do a video for them, and it was $500 budget they had. So I went to, you know, the local video houses with equipment houses, rental places, and you know, those guys were nice guys. They were like the working guys of the industry. They're the ones who really helped, I think, over the years. because they said, oh, sure, and we'll give, we'll give it to you for free on the weekend. You know, asking, people who maybe I went to film school with, if they would shoot it on the weekend, and, maybe I could pay them $50 or $75 and, always feed people well. That was another way of attracting people to come work on these little beyond micro budgets. And, just kind of keep trying to build and build from there, in a way that, I think the other thing is about Indigenous women, we're kind of community organizers. We're people who've been, putting things together, forever. And so that skill that we have there easily translates to producing.
Mhm.
Of course, there's a whole other layer of, the legal and the business affairs and, all those things that go into it that, I do. I do it reluctantly. I do it as best I can. And fortunately, along the line, I've managed to collaborate with a good ally, the woman named Patty Poskett, who is, that's what she does. She doesn't take any IP. She doesn't want any stake in the company. She's just there to serve. And she provides a lot of service for a lot of Indigenous projects, doing the business affairs side of things, which is like binders and binders and binders of information that's needed in Canada. Those tax credits require all kinds of paperwork to be able to access. So, so I think those are, but we have that strength. But, it's sometimes I think that there's got to be even, like recently I heard Francis Ford Coppola was going to make his own film because I think Hollywood probably has decided, a while ago that he wasn't going to make any more films. So, but he decided he's going to make one more film, so he's going to put his own money into it. And that's really unusual in the industry. People don't do that. And that's what I'd like to see. We talk about, I don't want to, like, I don't know whether this is appropriate, but how the land back issue, right? And you're seeing people starting to give money back and take, buy the land that they got that they know was, it was, stolen land, and they're giving it back to the communities. That's happened a few times in Canada where, a family said, okay, here, we're giving land back to this First Nation because that's your land. We're not going to, don't pay us nothing. It's your land. That was yours. We're giving it to you. I'd like to see that. I was thinking it's like stories back, and so it's like, it's not just that we go there and get them to give us the license and get us to give, and then we have to go in Canada to our various funding sources. It would be nice if people who have that means to just give us the money. Just give us the money so that we can have full control of the story from start to finish, And that's, I'm being unrealistic, but if there's any people out there listening, and,
It's not unrealistic.
And it's like that's how we're going to make that change, because these sort of increments, like just in Canada here in Knowledge Network, it's like a PBS, but just for our province, British Columbia. It's an educational channel, and the Vancouver Asian Film Festival and the Equity Office did an audit of that particular network. 98% of their funding over the last 7 years of licensing has gone to non-Indigenous, non-BIPOC producers. So 98% went to white producers. Even though they're doing sometimes Native stories, even though they might, and sometimes maybe a Native director was hired to do a short or something like that. And that's like a huge, like in this day and age, to see that. So there's deep systemic issues, that we still have to deal with. And I think the only way to do it is if we have those kind of angels, if you like, who are willing to see, that there's a bigger thing to serve here.
It's untapped stories.
Completely
untapped stories. A whole different point of view from the original people of this land. Loretta and Junie and our listening audience, we have Red Nation Television Network. And everyone, Loretta and Junie, you have a seat at this table, right? Every filmmaker that we collaborate with or support, our alumni, have a seat at this table. It's up to you to get involved. I can't make the audience get involved. It's like you have to be wanting to get involved and take a hold of this. But it's created and it's here for you. So I just want to put that out there. because it's so beautiful, the network, and we've been updating, and now we're getting, and we have original programming, and we just acquired a few new films, and we have 25 new films that we're going to be releasing in the next month or so. We have 1,000 film titles. In my office, I'm looking at, they're all right there on the other side of this desk. 1,000 film titles. So when Loretta, you talk about investors, right? We need those investors. And I love that you coined the hashtag stories back, Indigenous stories back, right? Or however you want to say it. How do you want to say it? Because it's your.
I've been calling it stories back, but I guess Indigenous stories back, I guess makes it more, more specific. But I think, I mean,
that's fabulous.
Good on Francis Ford Coppola going to make another film. I think he's a great filmmaker. Some of my favorite films are his films.
Yeah.
But 104. I think he's putting 145 million of his own money. Can you imagine that could make $145 $1 million?
I know.
Films in our communities.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm not asking Francis Ford Coppola to do that, but there are people with a lot of money out there.
I'm putting it out there right now. I'm asking you, Francis Ford Coppola, invest in Indigenous cinema. Call us 818-665-5753. Absolutely. You ask.
Yeah, no, it's got to be that sort of like seismic shift. It has to be that big. I mean, sure, we'll keep doing this and we'll keep making shows, and there will be change. But what I fear is that's one of the reasons I created the IM4 Lab, which is an Indigenous XR lab, and we're going to be doing our first virtual production training program soon, so that our people will be skilled to be able to participate in virtual production, because that's the next wave, with the technology.
Right.
But the thing is because I saw that VR and AR coming into our communities, and I saw the same thing happening as happened with us when I came out of film school. They kept telling me, well, you're not ready enough, you got to do more of this, you got to do more of that. And it's sort of like, well, no, if these new technologies, we need to have hold of them now. It can't just be given out to a few. It has to be accessible to all of us, and then we decide how we want to use them. We decide if we want to use them, and and if we don't, if we're not here with XR, we can be there at the beginning. So I think that's really critical, that we have those kind of seismic shifts, and that we don't just create elites where only a few get to tell the stories, which is great, but it has to be all of us being able to tell stories.
Yeah, look, our foundation here and everything we do, like there's a whole pie. There's not a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
There's a whole pie. So Junie, what is your take on this? What do you think?
I'm all in for some money from
from Francis. We're targeting you, Francis.
Spielberg's got bigger bucks. He should be giving back.
Yeah. Well, I don't know who has bigger bucks, but Steven Spielberg, call us. So yeah.
Well, I mean, even things like Vision Maker. I mean, look at all the hard work. It was Frank Blythe, right, who started that. All of those
Frank
years
did.
he did that with, same with you. Joanelle, you've been doing this with very little, just because you
44 years.
You believed in it.
44 years.
You knew it had to be done. So, I think that those organizations have to be supported to the level that they really deserve it. And
right.
And I think there, like I say, there's a deep inequity within the system, and it's going to require big shifts. I mean, I know in Canada, I'm very grateful. I'm not trying to sound like I'm not. I mean, I know that.
No, we have to state, Loretta. I don't mean to, but we have to state the facts.
Yeah.
And these are the facts. It's not blaming or shaming or any of that. Let's just be unapologetically us as Indigenous women producers. We have to state the facts. That's what facts are about. There's facts, there's data, and it needs to be discussed. And because if we don't have these important, timely conversations, we can't move forward. how do we move forward, right? And you also brought up something that's real exciting, because, you know, as a filmmaker, as an actress, as an entrepreneur, you know, it's hands-on, right? I just did it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think a lot of us have done it that way. I didn't go to school for this. It's like my school was, you know, hanging out on the lots, the MGM lots with my mom, or, you know, hanging out on different film sets, and, you know, watching and asking questions and learning. And then by the time I was ready to actually take that next step, it's hands-on.
Yeah,
It's
that's how I
guerrilla,
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
guerrilla filmmaking.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's again, I'm for that. Like, all our training is free. You know, there's so much trauma around going, you know, trying to going to school, and, you know, in our experiences, there's so much trauma around it. So, you know, I tried to make it as accessible as possible, which is like inclusive and free, and not, you don't have to take four years off your life to go to school and get a degree. You can, you know, there will be workshops, and you can take workshops as, you know, as you feel are going to be, you know, useful to you in terms of learning these different skills, these different tech skills. You know, even you know, the way we design film schools, you know, if we were totally in control of it, it would be different than the 4-year, you know, which is great. I mean, you know, I honor, you know, I went to film school, you know, I sort of felt like that's something I needed to do. But I don't think it's necessary. I absolutely don't
Yeah.
think it's necessary. And I think that if we had the training programs the way we wanted to do them, I mean, I brought people on when I was doing Nahiwaitan, the first, you know, the people I hired, I didn't hire them as trainees. I hired them as full crew. And one of the guys who worked alongside me as a director had never directed before. He'd maybe done one short. He was an actor, and he had done one short. And but you know, I knew he was a good guy. He had a son, and, you know, working with kids, so I was very careful about who I brought in to work with kids. And he was a very decent guy and sweet guy. Unfortunately, he left the industry because he wasn't making enough money, and now he works in construction, and he became a heavy equipment operator because he could make
But
$75 an hour instead of what I could pay him. But you
right.
know, the thing is that, you know, that's what we have to do. Again, that's us controlling the things.
Yeah. Well, you know, you brought up crew, and in 2015 we launched. There's only 3 film markets in the world. There's Cannes. There's one here, American Film Market, where it's, you know, distribution, right? And then we launched our native film market during our film festival. And we first partnered with the American Film Market in 2015 and did a huge event for producers and distributors at their market. And so when the pandemic hit in 2020, we launched RNCI Crew. And so we have a platform. It's powered by Cruvy, and Cruvy is the film industry's go-to database to hire behind the camera. So we've been encouraging everyone in our communities to sign up to RNCI Crew. And you can look that up on our rednationff.com site, our film festival site, to sign up. But the reason why I'm bringing that up, because it's everyday life. Like you were talking about your friend who's the actor, the construction worker. Well, crew is everyday life. It's like, that's what a crew is on a film set. We need, you know, to build a house to shoot in, you know, on the lot. We need to paint it. We need to furnish it. I mean, all those everyday life jobs are crew, are film crews. Those are all the departments. And a lot of our talent, they don't know that. And some of our people, they want to be in the entertainment industry, but they don't want to be a director or an actor. So this is a way for them to get into the entertainment industry, to go to RNCI Crew. So Junie and Loretta, tell all your crew to go sign up. It's super, super easy, because you never know when Sony's going to look there and say, hey, I want to be more inclusive. with native talent, let me go to Groovy. Oh, RNCI crew. Okay, let me look at who's available.
That's cool. I didn't know about that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'll send you the link after.
Cool.
But it's super easy to everyone, just let everyone know it's really important. And Groovy is the go-to. It's run by 4 women, 2 women producers who have on this conversation, these 5 conversations that we've had. The first one was Sunday. Go to nativewomeninfilm.com and look at that interview, and you'll meet Groovy. You'll meet Marcy, one of the co-founders, and we explain it all there. But it's almost we're getting to the hour, and I know Junie, you are have your day thing going. Grandma, I understand that.
Yep.
And yeah, so I just wanted to wrap up with, what is it that you would like the audience to know about you? Let's go with Junie.
I think, like, with me this year, I had a big change. I left my job teaching for 20 years, and now I'm doing filmmaking full time. So it was kind of I always had that safety net being a teacher, but now I've had so many opportunities since I did that. So I'm actually scared to put my name up anywhere because I don't have time to do anything because I got a lot of projects going on, but it's been good.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Well, where can our listening audience reach you or contact you or look at your projects, your films?
Women Make Movies distributes my films, the last 2, Without a Whisper and Under the Husk. So you can find me there, and Vision Maker Media supporting my new film, Ganoue. And you can find those films. I have websites for them too, Without a Whisper and Under the Husk. So you can check them out on there. And social media, you can look for me under my name. Instagram, called Mohawk Jitso, TSITSO.
And you can also view Junie's film as one of the 40 Native women filmmakers on nativewomeninfilm.com. And Loretta, what would you like our listening audience to know about you?
Well, a few things. I think one is that I really feel honored to be able to tell stories. I feel, when I feel that it's sort of, I hear stories about my grandmother, and she was this remarkable woman who stood up against authority and power, and so I'd like to think that I'm sort of following her. My grandfather was the opposite. He was kind of quiet and funny. So I like to think I'm honoring them and honoring all my ancestors. So I try my best. I don't know. The other thing is that I'm trying to, for many years, because I've been, doing good best I can for the community and doing, creating organizations and creating projects and helping people raise funds and so on, that moving forward, I'm focusing a little bit more on me. So I do have, I love doing Coyote Science. I love doing all the children's series. But I've been, I produce and, show run and, I direct some of the episodes. I write a lot of the scripts. So what I want to do is I've created a children's series, a new children's series. It's an animated series called Natanis and Skylar. And I'm hoping I can make that happen. And also I just recently optioned one of Richard Van Camp's graphic novels. So I'm hoping to turn that into a feature film. But I really, really want to focus on, dust off all those scripts that I wrote and bring them out and say, hey, I want to tell these stories. That's it. And I have a story also from my family's history that I really want to tell. So that's something that I'm going to focus on in the next while.
Well, I want to thank both of you for joining us today, Loretta and Junie. I appreciate you. I adore you both, and you're both extraordinary filmmakers. And You know, I encourage you to always submit to our festival, our big festival in November, and when your films are completed. And keep in mind that the films that you already have completed have a home here at Red Nation Television Network, where we have 10 million viewers in 37 countries. So yeah.
Thanks, Janelle. Thanks for
You're-
inviting us.
Yeah. Well, I love you both. Keep
Hi,
making
hi,
movies,
hi. Yeah.
and we'll talk soon.
Yes, great to
Okay.
see you, both of you.
Yeah,
And
you too.
thanks so
See you
much
guys.
for the invitation. It's been wonderful. It's been fun.
Yeah, we'll have more of these. There'll be more.
Okay, bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye. So Janelle, we'll catch up at some point about that other thing about, hey, is it possible to co-produce here?
Yeah,
Because
but
you
let's
know,
talk about that after the show.
yeah, I know there
Okay.
was a, yeah, okay, talk to
Okay,
you
because
soon.
I'm gonna wrap up right now the show.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Stay with us. Stay with us. Just stay with us. Everyone, that's our listening audience out there. Stay connected to nativewomeninfilm.com, and you can binge watch 40 films directed by women. And we are extending the film festival till April 4th. So you have time, you have the weekend, you have time to view these extraordinary films directed by Indigenous women. Red Nation Celebration Institute, the authentic voice of American Indian and Indigenous nations, founded in 1995, now in its 27th year this August. The creative enterprise by Natives delivering to all people the stories that shape our world. The longest standing Native women-led Indigenous media arts cultural pioneer enterprise in Los Angeles, with offices in Santa Fe, New Mexico, serving Indian country and the entertainment industry, representing 575 plus Native nations, established a rich legacy of work by supporting 5,000 plus Native Indigenous filmmakers. Our mission is to break barriers of racism by creating systemic change through media and pop culture in order to eliminate Native American stereotypes. Our vision for the future of cinema is one in which Native Indigenous perspectives are authentically pictured, recognized, and valued in a way that promotes strong, authentic Native identities, economic outcomes, quality, and wellness for our Indigenous communities. Our foundation is uniting creatives within our community with Hollywood to bring together a greater voice to the entertainment industry and the world at large. RNCI is honored and proud to work with strong leaders within our Native nations across Indian country America, and our Indigenous talent from directors, producers, writers, actors, and crew, in front of and behind the camera, fostering the next generation of talent and leaders. Filmmakers include Loretta Todd, Sterling Harjo, Junie Fox, Mark Williams, James Bird, Tailfeathers, Kyle Harris, and I can go on and on, including allies that have made Native and Indigenous themed films like Taylor Sheridan, Joe Billinger, Rebecca and Josh Tickle, Susanna White, and I could go on with that list as well. RNCI is film ready with a catalog of new stories that are in pre-production, post-production, as well as new scripted content, including original programming. RNCI has year-round programming, and our properties include the largest Native Indigenous Film Festival in the country, Red Nation International Film Festival. And of course, today, our Native Women in Film and Television and All Media, and our Red Nation Television Network. And I could go on with all of our other brands, but join us at nativewomeninfilm.com, and you could visit all of this on our site. See you next time. Keep making movies.